This is AIM Agenda. Thank you for being with us this morning. Joining me now from the Sky News Centre, Labor MP Ed Husic, and from Melbourne, Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Josh, your former boss, Alexander Downer, quite positive about Bob Carr. I guess you might not share that opinion?
Look, I think Alexander Downer was giving us a relative assessment of Bob Carr's chances to be an improvement on the very poor performing Kevin Rudd. And I thought it was important that Alexander Downer said Bob Carr might be a good foreign minister. Look, the point here is that Bob Carr is at odds with the Prime Minister on the main security issues facing Australia. On China, Bob Carr said President Obama's speech to the Australian Parliament was strange. He's talked about the US ceding authority to China in the region. That's bad for Australia, and that's at odds with the Prime Minister. On Afghanistan, he has said it's achieved nothing when we still have 1,500 troops in the field, and that's of a big concern because we know the Prime Minister's on the record saying we have made a difference in Afghanistan, a position supported by us. And then also on Iran, Bob Carr has talked approvingly of Iran getting a few crude nuclear devices, and that being better than conflict with Iran. The point here is every major world leader, Cameron in the UK, Sarkozy in France, Merkel in Germany, and of course President Obama, have made it very clear that it's completely unacceptable for Iran to get a nuclear device. So I think Bob Carr's on the left when it comes to foreign policy, and if he keeps with those views that he's had, he could be a very bad foreign minister.
Ed Husic, should Bob Carr be accountable for those previous statements that he made as a private citizen? Does he need to be accountable for those?
Look, Bob has dealt with that in his initial press conferences and subsequently, saying that his reflections as a private citizen obviously have to take a step back from receiving the briefings and getting the updates, and also having a period of reflection based on that information about our national interest and the way to prosecute that on the world stage. I think, I for one have been very supportive of Bob Carr's appointment as a senator and then obviously as a foreign minister. I think he adds great depth to our team. He is, as my colleague Chris Bowen said, brings with him intensive thoughtfulness to the role, and I think that he has demonstrated both statesman abroad and at home, and by that I mean his willingness to embrace and to consult and to talk with people regardless of their politics, recognising our nation's interests are our interests, and that is talking to people like Alexander Downer and taking his reflections through his period of service and talking to others and being able to better represent that internationally. I'm sorry to hear Josh make the statements that he did this morning. I think I'm just going to lead my comments. I'm going to lead my comments to this. Insert the cringe. Hang on a second, Josh. I'm going to finish. I'm going to make this one sentence. Insert the cringe at the end of this sentence. Bob Carr versus Julie Bishop. That's all I need to say.
Well, can I just say, you talk about Bob Carr being a statesman. The point is, he offended the Dalai Lama when he said he's more cunning monk than holy man. Well, now he's deleted that line from his blog. He's gone out and attacked every Republican politician that's running for the presidential race. What happens if the Republicans do win? How is he going to deal with them? I don't call those words or acts of a statesman. I'm sorry.
Your comments, though, have gone against the grain of what we heard from your former Foreign Minister, longest-serving Foreign Minister, Alexander Downer, and also others in the field. Have been very positive, including Hugh White, but others in the foreign policy fraternity have been very positive about this appointment. And let's look at his first few days in the job, briefings on PNG, Fiji, off to New Zealand Friday. Do you think that that's a good start?
Look, I mean, of course the Foreign Minister needs to travel, and as Alexander Downer rightly pointed out, New Zealand's a key partner for Australia in the Pacific, and we face major challenges there, particularly because Kevin Rudd ignored our backyard as Foreign Minister. Look, everybody is hopeful that Bob Carr will be successful in prosecuting Australian foreign policy. My point is, if you look at his previous comments, they're very, very extreme. They're very extreme, and they put him at odds with the Prime Minister.
Just ridiculous posturing. I'm sorry, I'm not going to have Josh Frydenberg say that Bob Carr's comments are extreme. I mean, his opening statements have been about prioritising the visit to New Zealand, talking about the importance of Indonesia, building on all the work that has been done in strengthening
and just
our
whitewash his blog.
With that. So, I'm happy to also put any previous comments you've raised. You've lectured George Bush previously, Josh, about climate change. Absolutely. Read your Age column from 2007.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on if we can. I'm sure we'll discuss foreign policy at length over the coming months. I want to ask you quickly about Joe Hockey's speech. Josh, it's been described as a spine stiffener in the Australian Financial Review today, saying that the coalition, he wants to set the agenda, that the coalition will return to workplace reforms and sending a message to those with protectionist sentiments within the coalition. Is this needed, do you think, to send a message to some of your colleagues?
Look, I welcome Joe Hockey's speech. I think it's fantastic that as Shadow Treasurer he's putting out a whole lot of good ideas in a very considered speech. And from what I've read in today's press, he's going to be talking about how do we get more skilled labour and the changing to the visas for 457s. He's talked about industrial relations reform, which this government has taken us back a couple of decades and resulted in falling productivity. And particularly we've seen the abolition of the Australian Building and Construction Commission, which will be disastrous in its impact. What Joe is talking about is key economic reform ideas that are going to be important for Australia to improve its economic performance in the years ahead. I thought it was really interesting, Kieran, that the Premier of China, Wen Jiabao, made a speech only yesterday where he talked about the declining growth in China. That's going to put huge pressure on our exports. And I think we cannot be complacent about our economic condition. So we've gone on about debt and deficit and this government's pitiful record, and now Joe Hockey's taking us a step further, talking about some of the reform agenda ideas, and I think that's a positive.
Including workplace reforms. Ed Husic, please don't tell me you're going to get into another Work Choices scare campaign. They've said it's dead. They've said it many times before. Surely there can be a decent argument about workplace reform without resorting to scare campaigns.
Well, absolutely, Kieran. And I've previously been on your, speaking with you and Josh's colleague Jamie Briggs and saying, I don't need to go through the slogans. Let's talk at the policy level about what the coalition wants to do in terms of IR and ourselves, and why, Josh throws away lines like, for example, productivity falling. That break in productivity started under their government. And the issue of productivity is one that takes time to deal with. That's why you have business representatives, for example, saying, well, productivity isn't going to be boosted by lifting corporate tax, slugging businesses $3.3 billion. And by the way, that's the coalition's policy on paid parental leave, and they're saying that ain't going to help productivity and innovation. In terms of what Joe Hockey said, Josh said he thinks it's going to be thoughtful. I saw one comment report in the Financial Review that said Joe Hockey believed we shouldn't be propping up industries. They're never there protecting manufacturing workers. We don't hear them protecting auto workers, 46,000 under threat by changes to industry assistance proposed by the coalition. Not there to back steel workers, but the minute you go to criticise a Clive Palmer or Gina Rinehart, look at the coalition's back.
Let's go to Josh. Josh, I want to ask you about this reference by Ed there to the paid parental leave scheme. Yesterday, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Peter Anderson, reiterated his concerns. He said that that's a mistake. It's valued at more than $3 billion a year. It's expensive, and some of your own colleagues believe it's a mistake. One of your fellow Melbourne MPs, Russell Broadbent, said as much in the Coalition Party room. Is this something you think that there should be a rethink about, that given it is so expensive, given that you've got a lot of savings to make?
No, and I think this is an important reform idea that Tony Abbott has been pushing and the coalition is fully committed to. Look, we're interested in a full replacement wage, 26 weeks, up to $150,000 per annum. This is important because it also includes superannuation, and it will do two things for the economy, Kieran. Firstly, it will boost productivity because it will make it easier for women to stay in the workforce to attract skilled labour. That's going to be incredibly important for Australia. Second, it's going to help us meet our demographic challenge. If you look at the problems in Europe, they're being compounded by falling demographics. And, you know, in order to replace a population, every female needs to have 2.1 children. In Australia, we're about that. In Europe, they're 1.3, 1.4. So this fully funded paid parental scheme will actually encourage people to have children, will actually encourage women to stay in the workforce, and that's a double positive for the economy.
This is on wages up to $150,000 a year as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a full, you know, we're looking at full replacement wages. I mean, the government has a Mickey Mouse scheme with its 18 weeks at the minimum wage. I mean, what we're talking about is something very significant to keep women in the workforce, to boost our demographics and boost our productivity.
Ed, the Business Council was critical yesterday, and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry also expressed its concerns about Wayne Swan's fight with the wealthy miners, Reinhardt, Palmer and Forrest. Was it really the way to go about things, to pick another fight? If you want to show that you're working with business, as the Prime Minister did yesterday with the Council for COAG.
Yeah, with COAG and involving businesses in the COAG process.
Why pick a gratuitous fight on the side? It's just about the politics, isn't it?
No, but it's not. Look, let me but hang on a second. Before I go to that, I just love that the policy angel shines through on Sky AM Agenda and Josh Frydenberg talking about the benefits of doing what they're doing, but not mentioning the fact that there'll be thousands of businesses that are affected, thousands of businesses affected by this, lift in the corporate tax rate. And the thing is, you know, these arguments, I want to contrast them to when we were talking about putting a price on carbon and hitting the top 500 companies. We didn't hear those type of words that Josh enunciated a few moments ago in relation to that. In terms of what Wayne Swan said, we are building a positive relationship with business as demonstrated through the announcements on COAG, but we're not going to have vested interests dominate and direct public policy by using money in the way that they want to.
Okay. Ed and Josh Frydenberg, Ed Husic, thanks, gents. That's all we've got time for. We're out of time on AIM Agenda. Thank you for your company. We'll see you soon.